You're listening to the AFTERBUZZ TV Network, now the largest new media platform on the web, and your #1 source for after-show entertainment.
Very good, Johnson.
From the AFTERBUZZ Studios in Los Angeles, California, presented by Maria Menounos and streaming live thanks to Akamai Technologies, this is AFTERBUZZ TV's Mad Men After Show. We'll break down tonight's episode and get you all the latest news and gossip. And now, another post-game wrap-up show for your favorite TV show. It's AFTERBUZZ TV's Mad Men After Show.
Hey there, Mad Men fans. It is a pleasure to be here talking to you on the Mad Men After Show. This is Season 7, Episode 6, The Strategy. I'm Matt Lieberman. Joining me as always, fantastic panels here. Joe Braswell's here.
Here I am.
Joseph Sanfellipo's here.
Nice to be with you guys.
And Sterling Cates is here.
Hello.
Yeah, we missed you two last week, but
You were gone too?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, but
man.
I'd like to think that we held it down in your absence with the
right
lovely
side of the
Kirsten
group wasn't
Ford.
here.
I had the
I know.
lovely Kirsten Ford all to myself. With Lieberman, but she was over there with me.
Yeah, so
Yeah?
he had her all to himself, but I think we did a lovely job. And just what an episode tonight! So much to discuss and zero time to do it in. So we're gonna do as best we can by you in the limited time that we have, because I absolutely adore this episode. You know, the last 2 episodes have been rather a little cold. In that, you know, there's a lot of symbolism, there's a lot of maneuvering. We have, you know, this unraveling of Ginsburg last week. And while a lot of it, I think, was very, very arresting to watch and has a great bearing on the series as a whole, this episode just warms you to the core, I think. You know, in really giving us, I think, the peak, perhaps, of the Don-Peggy relationship, where I feel like it's been heading all along, this mutual admiration, and in a way, kind of the inverse of their relationship in the suitcase. And I want to try to unpack that as best we can in the time that we have.
So you did there? Unpack the suitcase.
We also have the return of Bob Benson. Benson
Watch 2014.
Yes, Benson Watch 2014. Pete's back in New York. So I want to start by talking about Bob Benson. Now, you know, last season, I had it out for Bob.
You had hatred for Bob. Every
did.
time Bob came on, man, you were you had a vengeance for Bob.
I thought he was up to no good, and it turns out, you know, he's a very decent guy. You know, he came on to Pete at the end of last season, and it wound up bouncing him all the way to Detroit. But he's very, very good at his job. He's very good at his job, and the folks at GM are big fans of his. But unbeknownst to him and to the entire company, they are taking Chevy away from the agency. The tryout was a sensational hit, but it was always intended to bring the car back into the fold and do it internally. Bad news. So, you know, Bob comes back. We don't see him and Pete interact this episode, which is fine, just because they both have so much to do. And you know, one of the key things that happened last year was we saw Bob and Joan become this like cute little partnership where they fit really well together. They're like really great partners in every way, except perhaps in attraction.
I feel like you rarely see Joan let her guard down, and she just does that really naturally with Bob for some reason. I don't really like Bob.
Well, I can tell you the reason.
What's the reason?
Well, you know, there's no threat. There's no sexuality between them.
Right.
But you know, and it was very. I had a moment there when he proposed. I was like, oh, please don't be his beard for life. That you can do so much more than that. And she said the same thing.
Yeah.
Well, we're gonna get into that. The first things first, though. So Bob comes back to town with Bill Hartley of GM, and he receives a call in the middle of the night. And Bill has been arrested for attempting to fillet an undercover officer. Now, this episode takes place in June of '69. So it's like right around the time of the Stonewall riots. You know, we kind of get a sense of this, of the anti-gay sentiment kind of just being out in the air from the way that the, you know, the night bailiff or whoever it was that released Bill was treating both Bill and Bob.
Yeah, it tells him to get his head his head shrunk.
Yeah.
Good night, ladies.
Yeah, good night, ladies. Your boyfriend.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you know, later on with Roger in the steam room, with Jim from McCann, and you know, Bob is mortified picking this guy up from court, and you know, Bill asks him, "Have you ever been arrested?" And Bob is just, "No, I have never been arrested.
Right.
I am not of your stripe." This is he does not want Bill's life, and Bill makes a reference to his wife being very understanding, and I think that this is kind of like the arrangement that maybe he's trying to set up with Joan. That, you know, I feel like Bill's wife is very aware of what's going on, but she leads a comfortable life. You know, they love each other. They probably raised a family together, you know, despite not having really any attraction between them. But that's what it is. It's an arrangement. It works.
It's interesting to think of, like, you know, what it's like to be a gay man in 1969, especially one transplanted from Michigan to New York. Like I said, there's so much temptation. I know how you did this, but the whole notion of that, like, you know, two different types of guys. One guy is if you're closeted and you want to be able to find people, it usually was sort of this, sometimes this sort of underground, way of doing things. Others like Bob Benson, you can do your business, but keep it completely secret with, you know, keep it above board, but secret.
Right.
They're both secrets, but different types of secrets. So it's an
And
interesting
you know,
contrast.
Maybe you know, in special cases, when you have strong feelings for someone, you know, you make an overture for someone that you really do love, and you're not just seeking out gay sex. And I think on some level, you know, Bob, like, is disgusted by what has happened to Bill, but at the same time is jealous of his ability to be himself within the confines of this oppressive society. You know, Bob wishes that he had it so easy where he could just go and get gay sex, you know, out in a park somewhere. But that's not who Bob is. He values himself too highly to, you know, just go, you know, kind of sleep with someone he doesn't know.
It's reckless, and Bob's not reckless. Bob is very, very careful about everything he does. And Bill, clearly, that's a reckless move. And he's one of those GM guys who we've shown all through last season. Their culture at that company was very reckless. Yeah, we just do crazy shit. That's what we do. We're gonna go nuts.
Bob recognizes that he has so much to lose in this situation, whereas Bill might not, because he already has the life set up. He has this whole front that everyone believes, and I think Bob wants that same thing.
And it's also the presumption that, you know, being gay is about gay sex, which it isn't.
Right.
Like, you know, so being, like, for Bob being, you know, he's gay, but maybe he wants love and a relationship and a boyfriend. And whereas it's not just about getting gay sex.
I cannot remember the name of the play. I was looking it up, but I can't find it. But what he was talking about, Bill's life was the common way to be a gay man in the 50s and 60s. That was how you did it.
Right.
You had a wife and you raised kids, and you did what you had to do to make sure you had kids, and then you had your guy on the side.
But there's a difference between having your guy on the side and going out into parks, random.
Oh, no question. That's what I'm saying.
That's the distinction Bob's making.
Between Bob and Bill.
I'm not of your ilk.
I'm not of your stripe. I'm not going to go jump out there and try and fillet an officer.
Yeah.
We keep saying fillet because we're grown-ups on the show.
Fillet.
Yes, it's a fun word. It's a fun word to say. Yeah, fillet. You know, to perform fellatio. But
did I say fillet?
Yeah. But here's the thing, right? That's
Bobby Flay.
It's because you just watched Hannibal.
It might be.
right.
Yeah.
We just did Hannibal, and they do a lot of filleting, but it's very different.
All right. So I don't think, you know, when Bob makes this overture to Joan and he proposes to her, I don't think that that's the life that he wants, and I think it's another testament to why Joan and Bob get along so well. They do have similar values. Bob doesn't want to have, you know, the beard wife so that he can have a relationship and be protected. I think that that's just what he thinks a position as an executive at Buick would require.
I agree.
I think he wants the freedom to pursue a love in the open, you know, the way that he could potentially today, but it was impossible back then.
I agree. I think that it's more about what he needs to fulfill this role with Buick. He's like, Buick guys expect a certain thing.
I do wonder, and this is something I couldn't answer because I'm not gay, but I would love the internet to tell us. Believe it or not. But I wonder if there were men with the expectation in the 50s and 60s that they could live a lifestyle where they have kids and a marriage. I mean, we have this idea now that because we've gone to this place that was something that people have been striving for a long time. I wonder if that was even on anybody's radar at that time.
No chance.
I don't think so. I suspect that the winning, the best case scenario would have been what Bill has, where you're raising the family, you're doing the do, you have your sons and your daughters, and you have your stuff on the side.
Best case scenario.
Until, go ahead.
I just thought the whole proposal to Joan by Bob was really selfish because he wants to live a life and pursue love and have this open relationship and stuff. And so to propose to Joan and suggest that she can't do that anymore and be in a loveless marriage, I just thought that was really selfish on his part to not.
I agree.
Because she obviously deserves to find a husband who she can love and have.
Well,
hot woman's take right there. That's a good take.
Well, let's talk about where Joan is emotionally in this moment, right? This really is, when she turns down this proposal, to me, is the ultimate moment of self-actualization for the character. When we meet her, she puts all of this value on, how to present yourself to nab a man, a successful man who's going to give you a good life, who's going to take you out of an office so you don't have to work there anymore.
He's a doctor.
Exactly. Greg was the handsome doctor, presumably from a good family, and it was an utter absolute disaster.
Well, even Roger before that.
Roger.
He was always sort of like looking for that person of power.
Roger's the continual disaster.
Right.
Well, I still think there's something with Joan and Roger.
Well,
I kind of hope so.
Sure.
I like Roger.
Well, they have such a history. They have so much history together, but I don't know how romantic it could be going forward because I feel like she's evolved too much and he's evolved too much, and they've grown in different directions.
No, he's still dedicated to being a child for the rest of his life. I mean, he's I'm going to explore hippy dippy stuff, but at the end of the day, he's kind of living a kid's life. She's really an adult at this point.
Yeah,
and she wants a mature relationship. And it's very interesting to me that Bill, the first person that Bill went after when he came in the office was Joan. First person he looked at to make sure everybody knew he was into girls was Joan.
Yeah.
And of course there goes Bob going after Joan. Right. And it's interesting to see the evolution of the character, how all men recognize that either we're into Joan or we ought to be into Joan.
That Joan is a status symbol.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And now she wants to be a woman.
Yeah. She's saying, I'm not a status symbol. I'm a person, and I would rather be alone for the rest of my life,
or live with her mom for the rest of my life,
or live with my mother in a 2-bedroom apartment for the rest of my life, than be in a loveless marriage, even to my best friend.
And I will say this though, that she has that option because she's a partner. If she wasn't a partner, if she was just an office girl, she would take Bob's offer in a heartbeat. Imagine all the struggle that would be going on money-wise every step of the way.
But what you're saying there is completely diminishing his entire point. She
germane to her growth.
But are you saying she only evolved because she's a partner? If she's not been a partner, she would have
not
evolved?
Your option. I'm just saying that the character's options are limited. If there's financial stress, your options are limited. If you don't have the financial stress because you're a partner, then you have the option to grow.
I would like to believe Joan would have said no, whether she's a partner.
I think Joan has more integrity than that, even before the growth.
Well, go back to the other woman in season 5, right? She had to sacrifice a great portion of her dignity and a great portion of her pride for the agency and in exchange for this partnership. I think that
it didn't come cheap, man.
It didn't come cheap, and it's a memory that I think will always haunt her. It's brought her great fortune in terms of being a partner, now being an account executive, being the woman that she was to the women in the steno pool in 1960. She now is in the world to everyone. She is a powerful woman, and I do understand your point, Joe, in that if she didn't have these things, and if she hadn't had the experiences that she gained from what it took to get those things and to strive for those things, I think there would be a lot more temptation because she wouldn't have the money, and she wouldn't necessarily I don't know how far she would have come in terms of knowing her own self-worth until she took it for herself.
You make a great point. I mean, she would have a lot more temptation. I would like to believe that the evolution of Joan as an individual has more to do with what she's been through and not necessarily what her financial status is. Or
right.
So I'd like to believe that. And I also want to say this is just another great point of what this whole series has done. If you look at the series from 1960, 62, whatever it was, to 1969, the story of these women, the evolution of all these women.
It's incredible. It's very well done.
From where they all started to where they all now, including, and maybe we'll get to, we talked about last time, including Betty to a certain degree. I mean, Betty's sort of she's gone up and down, and to that point, if Bob Benson offered that to Betty, maybe Betty would have taken it, but maybe not. Betty's had a similar arrangement with Henry. Right now.
Although there's love there. They're fighting right now, but there's definitely love there. I do agree with you also, Sterling, that it's incredibly selfish of Bob to say, listen, you're old enough, you're pushing 40.
You're washed up.
You're washed up. There's no way that anyone else as good as me is going to come along.
This is the best offer you're going to get.
To tell Joan she's washed up when she gets as much as
exactly, which is preposterous. And, look, he is essentially a father figure to her son, to Kevin.
Yeah, Kevin gets a father.
Yeah, he gets along great with her mother. It would be an ideal partnership, but Joan already has a partnership. She has a partnership to this company. And if she's going to partner herself with anybody else, it's going to be because she loves them enough that it is worth sharing her life with them. Not because she's a status symbol, not because someone can provide for her. She is now in a position as a successful, powerful woman that if she wants something, she can take it, and she's not going to sacrifice any part of her life ever again.
And we've seen so many loveless marriages on Mad Men, so for her to be the first person to say, I don't want that for myself was a great
Let me toss something out there, though, because I think it's worth discussing, that the women who are the most successful at the firm are also the loneliest.
Right.
And this is the 60s, and this goes on in the 70s, and this goes on to our childhood when we were in the 70s and 80s, too. It's not easy to be a powerful woman. Peggy is all alone. So is Joan.
I feel like that's still the case today.
It probably is.
But
so it's worth pointing out that
I feel like
that there's a lot of scenes that aren't in the show. That a lot of scenes of Joan alone at night, living a very, very mirrored life to Peggy.
Right.
That are worth. It's worth pointing out that that's there.
Well, we're going to talk a lot about Peggy because I feel like this is kind of a turning point in that loneliness. There's a moment of connection that obviously the slow dance, and we're going to talk all about it. I want to move on to Roger while we can. A few scenes, him in the steam room at the New York Men's Athletic Club. And Jim from McCann, who we've seen a few times this season, sidles up to him, and he's basically sizing him up. He kind of makes this overture as if to say, come work for us, maybe.
I didn't quite get what he was trying to do.
I don't understand what happened there either.
He's trying to get under. So he's So he's trying to get under his skin. He knows that SC&P is going to lose Chevy. He knows that that's happening. He knows that Bob Benson is going to Buick. He wants to make sure, or try to get a sense of, is SC&P also going to Buick? All he knows, I think, at this point, is that they're losing Chevy and/or that Bob's going to Buick. So he's just trying to get a sense of what their ambitions are, because he knows that they're growing. They're going after bigger things. They're going after a fast food chain. Yeah, it's not McDonald's, but it's still a player in a big industry. They're going after tobacco all over again. They made overtures earlier in the season that they wanted Don. Maybe his offer, his saying, maybe I could make your concerns our concerns, is saying, if it makes it easier on you, give Don to us. Take this, take
tobacco.
Yeah, take Commander cigarettes.
Take Philip Morris, and we'll take Don.
Yeah.
You think that's what that was?
I think that's potentially what it was. I think that he's just trying to get a sense of what SC&P is trying to do. I don't know that he necessarily would do anything ever to help the company.
Sure.
I think that he would, after this whole Philip Morris deal implodes, they'd scoop up Don for a song. That's maybe what he's trying to do. But in any case, Roger doesn't really realize the impact of this information until later in the episode where it's revealed by Cutler that we're losing Chevy, and he calls it this failure on the part of Roger, who, you know, was unaware. He says to Joan later on, you know, like, why didn't you tell me? I could have done something. She's like, there's nothing that could be done. There's nothing that could be done. And he realizes the significance of what's going on with what McCann did earlier. Now, we've been setting up this kind of like internal civil war among SC&P. Where are the lines being drawn? You know, Don is sort of the focal point. Jim and Lou do not want Don there. Cooper is not really swayed by emotion at this point. Don kind of broke his trust, and I think Cooper's going to do what's best for Cooper. I think he also is really pleased that he's working with someone, a.k.a. Cutler, who actually knows how to run a business, which Roger does not.
I think Cooper's over Don completely. I think he's just completely over him.
Yeah. He's completely over him. He's a liability. And, you know, so Cutler and Lou are trying to score this tobacco account, hoping that it'll push Don out. Don has kind of wedged himself in so that there's a shot that if they get it, he'll still be able to stick around. Roger wants to keep Don. But then also we kind of have this moment at the end of the episode with just Don, Peggy, and Pete. And how beautiful does that picture look?
Man, like I said, family at the table.
Looks like a new agency.
The family at the table, just like Peggy drew it up.
Yeah, and then poor lonely Ted out in California
with that bagel and orange juice on his desk.
He is so irrelevant.
Can I ask you a question, Matt? Like, if you know, Cooper really does want, you know, Don out, which he has, doesn't Cooper have like the nuclear option? Doesn't Cooper have the Dick Whitman bomb he can just pull out and push that button and clear everyone out?
You can only use it once.
You
can only use it once.
Is that a rule?
Yeah. And
the Dick Whitman bomb is
it's when it's out, it's out.
Electromagnetic pulse,
and
man. It's over.
Maybe this is too much of a leap, but you know, Bert Cooper is a student of Japanese culture and Japanese philosophy.
Art of War,
Sun Tzu. And, you know, I think that he plays his cards very close to his chest. Okay. He's very strategic. And he's old enough that it doesn't matter that much.
But he's got it back there. He's got that card.
He's got it. And it's important to point out, I think, at this point in the series, that it is still out there.
Yep.
Well, you know, it seems to me Bert's job is more or less to sit back and make sure that all the proverbial ish stays in the horse. I mean, that seems to be his gig. And so if everybody's willing to get along, and we've found the parameters under which we can take Don back, and we've set the rules, we've put this collar around his neck so he knows he's stuck in a certain way, then I think he's comfortable as long as everybody's able to work. I think when the workflow is going to get jacked up is when Bert's going to go, okay, listen. But I think he's already set that in place without having to say anything about Dick Whitman or not Dick Whitman. I think he's already set that all up for himself.
Right.
I agree. All right.
And Don's already blown it, by the way, drinking with Peggy.
He's blown it multiple times.
He keeps blowing it.
So I want to talk about iTunes really quickly, just because we are really low on time today. And again, I apologize. We are just slammed here at AfterBuzz. But I want to thank everybody who's written to us, who's written these wonderful reviews. You're awesome. It's how we get our sponsors. It's how we get guests. And it legitimately helps the entire AfterBuzz platform. I don't have time to read all of these wonderful reviews, but I will credit everyone for sending one. Thank you to Mickey8888, Ruth in Oregon, Brown Coco, Captain Mensch, Babsy B, Jay Schlepp, Yakes MD, and Matt Place. I loved all of your reviews. They really made me feel great about what we're doing here this season. And thank you all for continuing to support us. Please continue to write in some reviews, and I will credit you all and give you shout-outs next week. So thank you. All right. Pete, I've been excited, waiting all season for Pete to finally land back in New York and see what's up.
Right.
And we start with Pete on the plane with Bonnie. Wonderful Bonnie. Who's so perfect for him. They're both sharks.
I love that Bonnie.
What could go wrong with a Bonnie?
Yeah, you know, and it's like
what
it's
could go wrong with a Bonnie?
Right, and you know, it's like moments where she tries to, you know, offers to get to the Mile High Club, and he says,
I've always wanted
always wanted to do that.
Can I tell you this? That scene, I love that. But you know what Bonnie did? Bonnie didn't say me too. Bonnie said, haha, smile, I'm going.
Yeah.
So I think Bonnie's been a member for a long time.
She's been a member for a while.
But it's like, it's a testament. We're looking at, you know, we talked about loveless marriages, right?
Yeah.
You know, the Pete Trudy marriage, he never belonged there. he never belonged in the quintessential 1950s kind of marriage that's typified by the first Burger Chef pitch.
Right.
He's always been a guy who's more married to his work than to his wife. He's kind of like the little kid brother version of Don in that sense, where he derives his fulfillment from what he does, not from building a family. And I feel like Bonnie is very, very similar. And that moment where he's like, this is a thing I've always wanted to do. My wife, who I thought was the kind of person I was supposed to be with, would never have wanted to do something like this.
Trudy.
And like, this is, I think, his self-actualization moment, but then he ultimately ruins it later in the episode.
I gotta say, it's so great to have, you know, petulant, pissant, a-hole Pete back, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I don't agree.
I like LA Pete.
Yes.
Let me clarify. I like LA Pete. I like LA Pete for himself, but I mean, just as a character to watch,
for you to enjoy, yeah.
I like to see Pete do his thing.
And I enjoyed. It was interesting. Bonnie said it really great in the hotel room. I don't like you in New York.
Yeah.
And that is
Like
the truth.
no one does.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Nobody did.
No one has ever
and
liked
he
Pete
goes
in New
back
York.
to the house with Trudy, and he's drinking that beer, and he just looks angry, and he looks like he put
Old
on
school
10
Pete.
pounds in
He
15
looks
minutes.
like he's like being eaten away inside.
He's always just in like a huff and puff every time he's in New York, just
Yeah,
stomping
very
around.
much.
He's faced immediately with his ultimate failure as a parent.
It's insane. Can you imagine anything more hurtful, more painful as a father than your kid hiding behind the nanny who's been around so little you don't even know her name?
Yeah. It's like, who are you?
I mean, I pay you, but I don't know who the
And
heck you are.
Trudy's not even there.
No.
She's
Yeah.
not even there to greet him.
Out on the town.
How badly would it have gone over if Bonnie, as she wanted to come meet Tammy, if she had actually gone out there?
Yeah.
No, it would have been a nightmare.
And
I
people
kind
would
of
have
wish
never
she
let that happen.
did. I don't know. Like, I really like Trudy in this episode. I think she had every right to go on a date.
Oh,
when
absolutely.
Pete gets to join the Mile High Club with Bonnie,
Exactly.
and he won't even let Trudy go on a date because it's immoral. I was
That
I was not having
It was
that.
Of course.
a
break.
massive double standard.
And then he said that Trudy was neglecting Tammy.
Right.
Meanwhile, Tammy doesn't even know who he is.
Right.
So,
Well, I
You're a
mean,
mother. Like that's just come
yeah,
on,
you
Pete.
have a child.
You have a child.
here's what I will
Right.
say.
I was
right?
not having that.
When you're divorced and you have joint custody of a kid, okay? She, at the very least, should have
they're
been
not
more.
they're not even divorced.
They're not even divorced. They're still married.
getting a divorce.
They're getting a divorce. But she should have at least been more in communication with Pete and not been late coming home. You know, her car was in the driveway, but she wasn't there. You know, she made it so that she didn't have to see Pete at all. I understand that, but make it clear so that he's not waiting around like a jackass
wait a
getting
second.
drunk.
No.
There was a
The
housekeeper
lady
there
was
who
there. The
always
housekeeper was
watches
there. He wanted to hang out because he didn't have his moment with Trudy that he wanted to have.
He wanted to have that
He
moment
wanted
where
to
he
have.
stomps out,
You
puts
better
the beer
believe
in
it.
the cake.
That
Like,
had
he
nothing
wanted
to do
to have a temper tantrum.
with taking care of the kid. That was
Yeah.
he wanted that moment to throw his weight around,
Right.
and she could care less, and that hurt him. It's the only
Even
thing he
more.
could do is smash the cake with his beer. That was all. Yeah, that was his last move.
And I must say, 1969 looks pretty good on Trudy too. By the way.
Yeah.
Nelson Brie.
Yeah, and she's you know, she's living her life as she should, you know, which is great. And yeah, just New York does something ugly to Pete.
Yeah.
Where, you know, he gets this fulfillment at work, but the fact is he's faced with the fact that he is a failure as a husband. He's a failure as a father.
Yeah.
It's maybe not a role he was ever destined to play, but that is his reality.
Yeah.
He does have a kid who doesn't know who he is and honestly couldn't care.
It was good to see him walk back in that office though with the tan face and the sideburns and you know the hot girlfriend. He was very, very happy for at least a minute in the office, but then it all went
and you know, ultimately he pushes her away by, you know, revealing his petulant side.
Yeah, who's never been in L.A. He's never been a powder.
Wow.
He's never been a little beach in L.A.
This was Pete. Now, as we know, Pete.
Yeah.
Everything we saw was like, oh, there he is.
Which
There's
is
Pete.
why, you know, it would have been very interesting to see what would happen if Bonnie had come with him to Tammy's and maybe it would have gone better. But honestly, having her see that firsthand would have, I
Right.
think, been ugly.
Well, that's why he didn't want her to come.
And
Yeah.
is Bonnie was on a plane, right? Like is Bonnie?
Yeah,
I want to talk about
she
that.
left
early.
She and
LA.
Bonnie, Bonnie and Megan both on the plane back to L.A. I think there's a lot going on there. We're going to get to Megan and Don a little bit later on?
We're about to.
Let's talk about
Yeah.
that because that plane ride back, both
But Bonnie and-
the L.A. girls are going home,
Yeah.
and that I think ends a couple of things.
They both had very different looks on their face. Bonnie looked a little obviously upset, and Megan looked at peace. Like she was excited to go back to
She
her
was
turf.
she was relieved.
Right.
Yeah, I think
so
you're right. I think that's the right
let's
term.
talk about Dawn and Megan. So Megan shows up at the office, seemingly out of nowhere. Again, smacked in the face with the realization that Dawn doesn't ever talk about her.
I didn't know you were married.
Ever. I didn't know Dawn was married.
Yikes.
Huge insult.
Yeah.
And watching their interactions, it's like like back to being kind of like nervously cold. Like they love each other in that they've invested so much time and energy and passion into this relationship. But they both know it's over.
Right.
They refuse to admit it aloud, but she basically came home to get the rest of her stuff.
Yeah.
Right.
And she says, I want to see you, not in LA, not here, somewhere else.
Somewhere
Well, that was
neutral.
after
like-
he was pushing
right.
the issue about.
Right. But
Yeah, well, he feels uncomfortable in LA on her turf, and she feels uncomfortable in New York on his turf. So
at this
meet
point,
in the middle, maybe.
do we really think that wherever they go, they're going to be able to reconcile?
No, but do we
No.
even think that that's what Megan wants?
I don't think so.
When she said that,
It
that
sounded
felt
like she just didn't even want him to come to LA ever again.
But when
No,
she
she
said
looked
that, meet
afraid
in the
when he
middle-
said he was coming in
Yeah.
July. She looked
Like,
scared.
like,
Like,
I
oh,
You're
why?
coming? Don't come now. I've got a guy there.
Right, yeah. I got a fondue pot. I got to pour some cheese on him. It's crazy. LA's wild, man.
Yeah.
No, but also when she said that statement about like we'll meet somewhere else, that didn't feel like she really meant that. It felt like an excuse. It
Right.
felt like, don't come home. We'll meet in Cleveland. Like it just felt like it didn't feel like
Cleveland's
it didn't feel
where all
genuine.
the good stuff happens.
To answer your question,
Cleveland.
I don't think that it's Megan's intention at all to reconcile. I think
I
she
don't
just
think
wants
so.
to go back.
And you know,
hide.
it was interesting because there were so many tableaus in this episode. There were so many
So many whats?
tableaus,
Yes,
like
sir.
long shots,
Beautiful shots, yeah.
just
for sure.
absolutely beautiful tableaus. But one of them was Dawn and Megan on that patio where she's made breakfast for him, and he comes out there, and I mean they just look like just paintings. They're so beautiful, the two of them together.
Yeah.
But he comes out there and he's standing behind her, and he's he's kissing her, and he's for him that's perfect. And he saw
Yeah.
her from inside the bedroom, and he's looking at her, and
She's a vision.
absolutely everything he wants. And she could not be more miserable to be where she is.
Yeah.
And he comes out and he gives her that kiss and she's got that uncomfortable.
She flinches.
Yeah.
And you can feel from her that if she accepts this life, it is a complete acceptance that she did not make it as an actress. It's a complete acceptance that her career never happened. It's an acceptance that she needed him
Yeah.
and couldn't do it on her own. And
She's weighing the decision. She's basically weighing the Joan decision.
Yeah.
Right.
Is it worth being in this marriage? What is it offering me? And do I have a shot at the life I deserve?
Right.
And the juxtaposition that we saw between when Don's in LA and Megan's in her element, completely happy, and Don's miserable, versus when Megan's in New York and Don's like couldn't be happier, and Megan seems to be miserable is interesting. It's such as what Kristen said last week about how Megan. Remember how Don looked at Megan and back in the Zooby Zooby Zoo episode, how he loved her, like he's just totally engrossed by her. At the party, he looked at her like disgusted, and now back in New York, he's looking at her like that again.
Right.
So,
And he says, like, I'm sure you missed this place. How could you not miss this place? And she's like, I missed you.
yeah.
She doesn't miss
nothing
New
else.
York. She doesn't miss the way it feels. I think she misses the way their marriage was.
I got to completely agree with Megan, by the way. I never miss New York. I love it all
disagree.
you want.
I agree
LA
with
is so
Don.
much better.
I agree with Don.
But you know what? The other thing I think going on that I don't think we've talked about is Don is not the man anymore. I mean, he's somewhat diminished, comparatively
Are
speaking.
you saying
In their marriage?
But are you saying that has anything to do with Megan's decision? Are you saying like Megan?
No, I think that it's interesting that when she got with him, he had the corner office. Of
course.
Remember that? And
And then
she's-
we have that moment
Right.
where she's like, soon enough you'll be in Don's office. And
Why?
she's
Peggy
like,
says it's not
right
that
not
next
much better
door.
than mine.
Yeah.
He's
you
in
know.
Wayne's office.
So I mean, like, I'm not
Seriously,
right.
It might be worse.
His is freaking haunted. His has got dead Englishmen all over the place.
That's horrible.
But I really I just think that, and I'm not saying that's a huge deciding factor, but it's definitely going on. Like Don is not, she's not the little girl, and he's not the man anymore.
But I would ask you, or all of you actually, like, do you think that Megan's intention was to go out and sort of survey the landscape and really make a decision? Like,
No, I don't
do I
think
really
so.
want to be there, or was her decision to grab her ish and get the hell out
I
of here?
think it was to grab all of the rest of her stuff and get back to LA.
Do you guys think that was conscious, or do you think that
mean,
kind
that's what I'm
of?
saying.
100%.
Oh, okay.
I definitely think
You
so.
know, like, look at how
she's-
their marriage has been structured since she moved out there. This is apparently to date her first visit back to New York. period, since she moved out there. The rhythm has been she's living her life and he can enter it or leave it whenever he sees fit. She wants him to do it more often. But as things continue to get colder and more desperate, you know, the threesome last week being a huge example of that, I think she's realizing...
No marriage ever survives.
I think she's realizing it's time to maybe consider cutting her losses and getting her things. She says she missed her things in, I think, a far more convincing way than she said she missed him.
Right.
She just...
Well, let me toss this out there. You tell me what you think.
Okay.
They got lots of money. Money's not an issue. So if she wants to get new things, she can go out and get new things. And I don't know from fondue. I really don't. I'm lactose intolerant. But I don't know if there are such things as family heirloom fondue pots. So, I mean, I would imagine it would be more of a combination of things. You know, like, yes, I'm coming back here to get my fondue pot. I can go buy 16 fondue pots. Who cares? I feel like she went back. She was game. She was game for this, and in the course of that trip back, I think is when it all died.
That's where I'm leaning towards, because it really felt like in their few, there's a lot of things there along the way that kind of like the whole I didn't know Don was married. Right. That's like strike one. The conversations on the phone, but it felt like for a few moments that they were happy together. It was good to see Don so happy, and maybe I was focused on Don. I'm like, oh, Don's really happy.
It was the black polo and the slacks. He's looking good. He looks healthy. He's opening that bottle of wine. That's how he does it.
It didn't actually tune into Megan. I'm like, because I'm a stupid man, I'm like, oh, Don's great, Megan's back, woo, New York. But then after a while, I'm like, wait a minute, Megan is not having this.
But I agree with you, Joe, in that, you know, maybe she had some hope that things could be fine, and then seeing the reality of it reinforced the fact that, like, it's time to get my stuff. Also, you know, a woman preparing for a divorce, and potentially an ugly one, I think that she's going to grab whatever she can, just in case.
You never know.
Just in case he tries to keep it, just in case he tries to, you know, keep more of the money. Now, I
might
imagine...
have to sell that fondue pot.
Yeah, that was going to say, what if that's worth a lot of money?
Exactly. Or
like I said, I don't know from fondue pots.
I don't know if they did prenups back in the day, but...
This is a slimmy flangy doo fondue pot. This slingy dangy foo fondue pot is worth $300 million. I don't know. I'm not sure what...
Well, off of this shopping note, he offered to take her shopping as well as Pete offered to take Bonnie shopping, or not to take her, but for her to do it on her own. Right. Like, what else could they possibly want to do in New York, you know, other than shop?
Yeah.
Well,
so
tell me, I'm curious, because I've been there a bunch of times.
I personally like the shop, but they didn't give him any other options.
Here, we're low on time, so I want to move into this Don-Peggy relationship. So, you know...
Wait, last thing. Plane ride back. You got Megan and Bonnie. Both girls are heading back to L.A. alone. That was the whole point.
Yeah. I agree with you there. That was a scene.
Sorry to interrupt. Please move on. That was a scene. It happened in the show. There was a curtain moving on.
That happened.
Peggy, you know, over the course of this season, she's been dealing with a whole lot. She's the copy chief. She's getting bigger accounts, and having Don on her team, difficult at first, and now it's becoming, you know, more normal. Pete, being Pete, you know, he wants what he feels is the best chance at selling these ideas. And in his mind, that's Don. He's been pushing Don this whole time since he got Burger Chef on the table.
I love that.
Yeah. Well, of course we do, because we love Don.
I love people being an outsider coming in like, what's going on in this office? Don's right there. Like, get Don in here. What are you guys doing? They're
right.
like,
but that's a huge bummer for Peggy,
like,
because she's grown a whole hell of a lot as a creative, as a boss. You know, Don is working for her. He's swallowed his pride, and he's doing it seemingly very, very well.
Yeah.
They've reached a nice, easy rapport, but... as they present this, you know, this idea of Burger Chef, which is a very solid pitch, if a bit old-fashioned, it doesn't reflect the woman that she meets at the top of the episode. We look into this car. This woman is exhausted. She is miserable. Right. She doesn't care about your questions. She just doesn't want to go home to a fight. She's pissed off that she's buying this fast food instead of being able to provide for her family. And, you know, she resembles, I think, a growing number of people with kids in the 60s, in the late 60s. Of
course.
You know,
that's how I grew up in the 70s.
Yeah, life becomes
and 80s.
more and more complicated. You're doing far more. You don't have time to make a roast every night. You just don't. And, you know, Lou loves this idea. Pete wants to have Don pitch it, which is just crushing. because it's the same thing all over again, like when Dawn was in charge.
She's as good as any girl in the business.
Yeah.
Any girl.
Any girl.
Ridiculous. You know,
All two of them.
It's glow.
Right.
As good as the other one.
Let me
That's
throw
what
this
this
out there. It's glow coat all over again.
Yeah.
It's her idea that Dawn took and turned into a commercial and got the Clio.
She dropped that on him too. Remember?
Right. Yeah.
I love that Pete is here to
That's
give
what
Dawn,
the money is for.
That was one of my favorite scenes in All Men.
Yeah.
I love that Pete is here to help kind of push Dawn, give him some more power, but I
Mm-hmm.
really don't want to see Peggy fall back into
Exactly. And I don't think that she will after this episode.
Right, I don't think so either.
Yeah. So, you know, and the worst part is they say, we want Dawn to pitch it and then to hand over to you for the mother's voice of reason, but it's your decision.
Yeah.
It's your decision.
And then they submarine her with Ted on the
Ted.
phone.
Mm-hmm.
I agree, Peggy. Huh? Who's
What?
that?
What?
That.
Damn it!
It's me,
Yeah.
Ted.
You are such a-holes.
Yeah.
Is he always just waiting for someone to have a conversation with her on
great.
the phone?
That's what he does. That's what he
You gotta
does.
have someone to talk
So-
to.
What are you doing? I'm man in the box.
It's your decision, Peggy.
She is, you know, incensed, and she doesn't really feel like she has any wiggle room on the subject. If she says no, she's going to look like the difficult woman who, you know, refused to take
And not a team player.
and not a team player who refused to take anyone's advice. And if it blows up in her face, she will eat all of the crow. She will. You know, it's going to be her failure instead of, you know, the team doing
absolutely.
everything that they could. So she goes to Dawn and she, you know, posits it as her idea, and he immediately sees through it. It's like BS. Whose idea is this?
Yeah.
Who told you to do this?
And he didn't want any part of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, at the very least, just because he doesn't want to step on her toes. The idea, I think, does excite him. And finally, he does.
Well, we see him celebrate when she leaves.
Yeah,
so
he
that's-
accepts, and then he's like, "Yeah, I'm back.
Yeah.
I get to present. This is what I was born to do." You know, and but as she leaves, he just throws out an idea. He just throws out, just toying around. What if it was from the kids?
Noodling.
I was doing some noodling.
Yeah.
noodling.
What if it was all
Noodling.
from the kids' perspective? I don't
Right.
know. And I've never heard him be this kind of casual throwing out an
Nonchalant.
idea.
It's not his ass on the line. It's
Right.
her ass and Lou's ass.
Yeah,
but
but
his ass is off to the side.
But Don, I don't know that we can discuss this if we had time, but I know if Don knew what he was doing when he did that. Because
Right.
Don, that was genuinely, he kind of knew that the idea is like, Peggy, there's better stuff. I don't
Yeah.
know. I don't want, not my place, but that was kind of noodlish with the
One
kids
room.
review.
And it's pulling thread, and the whole sweater starts to
Right.
unravel, and she no longer has confidence in the idea. She, in her mind, knows that Don is like saving some perfect idea that he's been saving
And he's
all
just gonna
along,
bust
that
it
he
out
was
during the-
never going to share with her at any point during the development, just hoping, waiting for some man to say, no, Don should do it, and he'll just swoop in and he'll just say the perfect tag at the end of the meeting, like it just came to him in the moment.
Yeah, like,
Do I do that?
Do I do
Yes,
that?
you do
Yes,
that.
you do that.
Yes.
Oh, never realized
That 10 minutes or 7 or 8 minutes, wherever that was, where Peggy's like just agonizing about Don, and that was so painful. I was so sick of Peggy. Like, I'm like, Peggy, I'm screaming at the screen, like, you know, Don is a creative genius. You love Don. Don loves you. Get in the room, fix it. You know, the whole time, like, do it. And they did that. Ultimately, it was great.
Right.
I love the way it played out. But God, that whole process of watching Peggy be like, and Don, and I hate
Yeah.
this, and I hate you.
her call with Stan.
Yeah, all of that.
That relationship is still
I love
still so
Stan.
weird.
Stan
I love
is
Stan. I
terrific.
love
Might be my
Stan
favorite
too.
character.
And you know, maybe they'll wind up together. I don't know. But
Steady.
you know, she goes back to the office to try to figure this thing out. She's obsessed. She can't figure it out. She calls Don at home. He sits down to dinner with Megan, but ultimately winds up back at the office.
I love it.
And you know, she's like, I need you to tell me how you would do it. How do you think? How do you make this happen? Which is honestly, I feel like a question many viewers have been asking since the start of the series, pulling back the cloak a little bit. And he's like, well, you know, you have to think about what the client is feeling, what they're thinking, and like what the consumer is thinking. And if I don't necessarily feel as confident in an idea as I did before, I go back to the start and see if I wind up in the same
Says
place.
he takes a nap and
Yeah.
he goes back to start.
Or
But he says
before that,
Well, he
he
says, "I abuse
berates
the
his.
people."
he
yeah.
berates
Yeah.
the people he can. And then,
Which she did.
but
Yeah.
the whole point was, what do I want? Well, not what does the client
Yeah,
want.
what do I
Right.
want?
Not what does Lou
My
want.
way.
What do I want?
What is my way?
And that's what he tried to
Symbolism
get
enough for
Peggy
you?
to do. Oh, and then my way at the end. And because I'm a Frank freak, so that was a beautiful thing. But anyway, yeah, that's the integral thing is what do I want? What do
Yeah.
I want? And trying to get Peggy to decide what she wanted.
Okay. So we get this scene where you know, she realizes that that type of family doesn't exist. They're reminiscing about 1955 and 1965, which for Peggy was a great year. For Don, maybe not as great. I mean, he married Megan, but it was a rough one. And you know, this song is playing, and apparently it's playing all the time in the summer of '69. You know, she reaches this moment. She realizes, you know, like that Burger Chef is whoever you're sitting there with is your family. And it's this very beautiful, very real, very modern sentiment, taking meals out of the home where, you know, family togetherness is becoming less and less important or less and less manageable, and putting them in this shiny, clean, new space that is meant specifically for communal gathering.
Absolutely.
And, you know, in this celebration, this moment where the student becomes the master, and she reaches the idea, not Don, she does, kind of taking the suitcase where she's throwing ideas against the wall all night, and finally he comes up with the thing. And that's how it's always been. And finally, she gets her victory, and they celebrate together. And I love this shot where, you know, on the right side of the frame, they're dancing, and then on the left side of the frame, you see this reflection, and you kind of get this sense of who they were and who they are, and this mutual admiration and love and respect. And it's like, I know it's not a romantic couple, but they are the couple.
That was perfect.
Heart of the show.
Yeah.
Perfect moment, and very eloquently put by you.
I couldn't have said it better myself.
But yeah, no, but a perfect Mad. Yeah, thank you. A perfect Mad Men moment for all those reasons you said, but also just getting us inside what Mad Men does, both getting us inside the creative process.
Yes.
In a way that, like, you know, that's wonderful, and also being able to, you know, repair this relationship that we know and see and we're invested in, and see them both get together as creatives and as people who care about each other.
Yes.
All in the same moment, and also what Peggy said in you know, when trying to crack this whole thing, when she talked about this family, she's like, does anyone do that anymore? Like, like we said earlier, like, it's 1969. Does that family even exist? Like, who are we? And it kind of is a metaphor for what they used to do and how they used to present things. And they're responsible for this image of this family. They're partly responsible for the image of love and this family and all these things that as admin that they've brought onto society. And now they're looking back like, well, does this exist anymore? What can we do to project what the new family is?
Have we been lying to the American public for years? Have we been selling them on a dream that no longer exists?
If it ever existed. Do you remember doing that? I don't remember that.
Right. And none of them can relate to that traditional family that they're trying to sell.
No, they can't. Look at Pete and Bonnie, who may never have a family at all if they're able to work out their differences. And they meet with Pete at Burger Chef, and, you know, Pete tries to railroad Peggy, and Don says no, she's going to do it her way, and symbolism achieved. And then we pull out into this temple.
It was such a great shot.
Beautiful. And, you know, seeing these three together makes us all wonder. We've been thinking about it. Other agency, potentially. All right, unfortunately, we do have to wrap up. I want to thank everyone for downloading, watching, listening, streaming to the episode. This week, we'll be back with the final episode of 2014 next week. Joe Braswell, where can the people find you?
You can find me on Instagram and Twitter at Joe K. Braswell, and for the season finale, Hannibal and the Americans.
All right, Joe Filippo.
You can find me at Joe Flippo, Joeflipo, on the Twitters. My website is josephsanfilippo.com.
All right, and Sterling Cates.
I'm on Twitter and Instagram at Sterling Cates.
All right, and you can find me on Twitter at Matt Lieberman. That's MattLieberman. New summer shows: *Halt and Catch Fire* on AMC. *Under the Dome* is coming back. I've got *The Strain* this summer. *Grace Point* in the fall. Bunch of great stuff. Stay tuned. Also, all my videos on SourceFed. Thank you all. Good night.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.
Thank you for watching AfterBuzz TV on YouTube. For more of your favorite after shows and interviews, subscribe to our channel here, and be sure to share your opinion on the episode in the comment section below here. We'd love to see what you guys are buzzing about. Thanks again. Buzz you later.